episode 15 of Life Studied. I'm Mike Hawthorne here with my very good friend Mairin-Taj Caya. Mairin-Taj, how are you?
Hi, I'm alright. How
I
are
should
you?
probably, here, so you can say hi. So Mairin-Taj is an actual person, not just a voice.
Not just an AI bot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, every fifth episode we do live for our
Yeah.
patrons. So if you're out there, I didn't do a very good job of scheduling this in advance. I don't know how many people will join the chat, but you're welcome to join in, ask questions. Mairin-Taj will be keeping track of the chat in between poses, and we'll do our best to answer anything you're thinking about. Mairin-Taj, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Good?
Yeah.
Good. We have not worked together in a little bit, so
It's been a while,
yeah, which is weird. Did you want the fan on, by the way? I meant to ask.
That's fine.
Okay.
A little bit of airflow is nice.
That voice is actually hitting you. All right, so if you're not familiar with the show, Life Studied is me and Mairin-Taj talking about all things art and life related while also drawing. So Mairin-Taj is a professional artist and a model, so she will pose and she will be the brains of this operation while we're talking, and I will draw badly and say funny, dumb stuff. We are here in Curio Art Supplies and Gallery, or I think it's Gallery and Art Supply, in downtown Lancaster, PA. These folks are absolutely amazing. They have this back room behind the shop itself where they do lessons and different studio events. They have like live drawing, I guess, in here, and some still life sessions. So if you're in the area, you should stop by. It's run by two artists that are absolutely wonderful people, and they also have a website. So if you want to special order something, they're happy to do that. I will order stuff through them, and it's a breeze, and I get to just call and talk to them and say, can you get me this, and they just do it, as opposed to like trying to figure out a website.
Yeah.
Which is a pleasure.
And they know, they know what they're talking about. They know what you're talking about.
Correct.
They got all the skills and the knowledge.
Yeah, so, or just reach out and thank them for hosting the show. And also Blackwing has been supplying pencils. Can I get that in the camera? And I'll have a link for both Curio and Blackwing in the chat, or rather the description, so you guys can get stuff, support the show, have fun. And I'll also have a link to Mairin-Taj and I's Patreon. Patrons get the show at least a week early, and you get to ask questions during the live shows. If you're not seeing this live, then you're not a patron. And shame on you. You should be a patron. So yeah, let's get started. I have been told by my family that I talk too long in the beginning, and I should get the drawing faster.
Get drawing right away.
So yeah, let's probably start drawing here. But yeah, if you see anything in the chat that someone's asking, let me know.
I will try to check that. It looks like my phone is like a little slower to catch up to.
No worries, it's all good. Anyway, so I've been teaching this new class.
Yeah.
And it's
Right across the
observational
street.
drawing. Right across the street, correct. We are across the street from Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, where I teach. And we have this new class called observational drawing. And it's all based literally just looking at a thing and trying to assess how to, that was the funniest thing. Sorry, you missed it. Mairin-Taj is scratching her nose, and she made a very funny face.
I tend to do that apparently.
Yes. And you're sorely missed, because normally you and I would be teaching together, and I'd have you to like lean on. This has been weird, adjusting and getting kids. I should probably start drawing instead of talking.
2 minutes?
Yeah, it's fine. So we started with things like bark plates. If you're not familiar with bark plates, I will post something about it in the description. And just trying to teach these kids how to see and then make some marks based on that observation. And it's been going really surprisingly well. Honestly, I thought that introducing something kind of old school like this would maybe not be well received.
Yeah.
But so far, it's been going better than expected. There's been a lot of buy-in.
That's great.
Yeah, but it got me thinking about, you know, drawing in terms of like, because observation doesn't just have to be like measuring everything, which is what I've been focusing on. It can just be your ability to capture the feeling of what you're drawing, which is, you know, more what we're doing during the show with gesture drawings. And I guess I was curious to hear what you think about one versus the other. Is one better than the other? Is one worse? Is there some happy medium? Like, I sort of gave you the example of when we see these like kind of ultra real drawings where there clearly there's been a lot of effort in making it look right, quote unquote, but something still feels wrong.
Yeah.
Versus someone like, say, Egon Schiele, which is like, his drawings always feel right to me, like all the anatomy's there, but it's clearly not, it doesn't look right. Whoa.
Oh no!
Just broke a pencil tip. It clearly doesn't look right? It's very stylized, very exaggerated. So those are sort of the two examples I'm thinking in terms of looking right versus feeling right. And I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yep. And the pose?
On the pose. Speaking of not looking right, it's my first drawing of the day. I'm sorry, everybody.
Hey, they're warm-ups, right?
Yeah.
Warm-ups are not masterpieces. Well, I mean, that's interesting to me that you said, you know, you're kind of like one or the other. And I'm just picturing, because we're, you know, the context currently is, you know, in a class and teaching students, and I feel like it's so cliche, and I feel like so many people are going to roll their eyes, but I feel like you just have to work with studying, measuring, more technical drawing skills from life before you can get to doing it
Wrong.
for the feeling.
Yeah, like I think there's this kind of tried and true method of you teach actual technique, and then they can break the rules later after they sort of know them.
Yeah.
And one of the examples that's always often given is Picasso, right? Who was like classically trained from when he was a kid. His dad was an art teacher, and then obviously went on to break a lot of rules. I agree with you. I think, especially for kids that are paying for this, you know, like I want them to feel like they got something for their money versus just being told, okay, just go draw the figure and something will hit you, which I feel like you can do on your own. You don't need to, you know, go to an art school for that.
Yeah.
But it has gotten me thinking quite a bit about like not being able to teach that second method, right? Like I'm going to give them these technical skills, and is there some downside? Like will they sort of get very rigid? And we've seen that in the anatomy and the probably more the anatomy class we do together, where they get so wrapped up in that it starts to stiffen up their drawings, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's kind of inevitable, though. Meaning, I think that the phase of having sort of stiff, emotionless, lacking emotion.
Gotcha. No, I know what you mean.
Non-emoting drawings. That's the way I want to put it. Having stiff, non-emoting drawings is like a phase you got to go through. And that, I feel like for most of us, probably that's a phase that might span years.
Yes.
Because it's going to take years of consistency, and a lot of artists don't even do the consistent part. It's going to take years of consistency just to get to, okay, how do I break the mold of the stiffness of the academic style of working,
right,
and imbue an emotional or a feeling or an essence into it. I think that just takes time. I don't think you can just like teach someone that in a semester.
I think you're right. I mean, like, one of the things I've mentioned, I've caught myself saying quite a bit this semester, is that we're going way too fast, right? Like these kids feel like it's you would actually kind of love it. I know you are more like work oriented. So you would love to see these kids just tapping out. Like there's so many of them just like I need to just walk away and like look at something other than paper. Like because they're really in it and they're really they're trying their hardest, and it's not a type of drawing they're used to when we're talking about real technical, you know, measuring and envelope drawing and triangularizations for angles and things like that. But when I tell them like, you know, look, this is it feels rough, and it's been 4 weeks of this, and we are going way too fast. You know, when I tell them like, look, you could spend weeks on one barred plate.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, if Mairin-Taj sounds odd, it's look at this pose. She's stretching upward, so that's why I'm also trying to not ask you a question yet, so you can breathe.
Yeah, my trachea is a little bit strange.
So, but my point was that when I tell them, hey, this feels bad, please remember that if we were doing it the right way, you would be much more unhappy. And I also give them the example of, and I can't remember the guy's name, but there's that famous painting of Lucifer with like the tear in his eye, looking angry over to the side, where like I will find it. I'm sorry, I can't remember the guy's name, and I'll post it in the description. But it's a very famous painting, and I point out to them, and if you saw it, you know exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
And I point out to them like, that's a student, right? It's this masterful painting, but the guy was like about their age. He was maybe 22 or 24, and I tell them like, I just read this article from an artist that I really respect, and she's saying how it used to take longer to train an artist than it does to train a surgeon now, right? These guys would be apprenticing at like 7 or 8, maybe 10,
Yeah.
and then be at it for 16, 17 years.
Right.
Right. So we're going way too fast. And it might feel unpleasant, but it's better than what it should be. You know. Right.
You mean with the changes at peak out a little bit?
Well, I mean, I guess just in terms of like asking them to do these kinds of drawings.
Yeah.
That are very out of the norm for them. It just feels so foreign, and I get it. You know, like you see the classic image of an artist holding the pencil out or something to measure things, and we take for granted that we know what is being done, but often students have no idea, right? So now that you can breathe a little easier, I'd love to hear what you think in terms of like, is that a bad approach? Because I think I keep wondering if maybe I shouldn't be saying, hey, it could get worse, as a way to motivate them.
I don't know. I mean, if I were in the class, I'm sure that would come up a lot. You know, just hey, if Mairin-Taj were teaching, you'd be crying.
You guys would be very upset.
I don't know if that's a good approach either. I don't have nearly as much instructing practice as you. So who knows? You know, I feel like if I were teaching regularly, I'd probably be devastating.
Yeah, you're much more of a hard ass, and you're more disciplined, and you're more like you push. Which I honestly, we have joked that I think they'd probably draw better if they had you instead of me.
I know, but yeah, it's all of that aside. What are you asking? What are you asking?
So is that kind of, is me trying to explain to them that hey, this may feel like it's taking forever to do, but in fact it's way faster than it should be. Is that maybe a bad, because I'm trying to get them to just look at things and see angles and see proportions versus seeing the thing they're drawing.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm pushing a boulder uphill for some of them.
Yeah, I
And
can imagine. Yeah.
And it's reminding them that this is the fast way of doing this. Is that maybe not that motivating for them?
I don't know. I often think about that in my experience with instructors as a model, because I observe the class process, and sometimes I'm wondering, is there a wonky way to go about sort of getting people who've never seen something before in a certain way to see it in that certain way, like to see shapes instead of a figure?
Correct.
So what, and I think about that all the time, like is there like a wonky way to kind of like tape off the exterior boundary of the figure in an image and just show the interior of the figure by like not giving it context visually, and then be like, okay, what is this shape, and just outline that,
Right.
and then do that a lot.
Right.
And then be like, okay, now we're gonna do that, but we're gonna expand it into like a bigger form. Or I don't know. I think about that all the time, and I just.
And when you say wonky, you mean in the actual sense, like a technical, like in the weeds kind of approach, as opposed to, like people will often say wonky as in like something looks weird.
Right. I just
you
mean
mean like
an unconventional way about
gotcha.
something.
Okay.
I'm going off on a tangent here, but
No, it's helpful.
I'm trying to kind of circle back to, I don't know what the way forward would be. Of course, everyone learns differently, but it seems like there is a trick, or there is the need for tricks in
Yeah.
getting a young or unfamiliar mind to see a thing that they're not accustomed to seeing.
Correct.
And I think that is a big reason why long ago, or maybe even now, but in unconventional circles, you can get, or you should get, a much more in-depth and slow process of training.
Right.
Because it's really not about, I don't think it's really about, by it I mean traditional or old school art training. I don't think it's about the technical training maybe as much as it's just about training the brain, training the eyes.
So I will tell you, I agree with you, and so the approach I've taken is so I always teach where I assume, oh, by the way, is there anything on the chat that we should be addressing?
Let's have a look.
While I blabber. I always teach like you have never taken a drawing class before. So I try to hit every step.
Assuming that, yeah.
Right. So to force them to see differently, like you're describing, what I've done is I'm making them, like the very first day, all we talk about is proportion. And not in proportion in terms of like how many heads tall something is or whatever. It's literally how tall is the thing compared to how wide is the thing. That's it.
Yeah.
So all you're drawing is boxes at first. And I could tell they were like, what the hell is this, right?
Yeah.
Because if I say draw, I'm trying to think of something that's visible. Say that table. So what I'm talking about is, if we were drawing that in class, I'd say measure the width, measure the height, and then draw a rectangle on your paper that matches those proportions. Then I took the next step and did like blocking. So we start to do basic shapes, or envelope drawing, where you have the rectangle, and the idea is that you ignore the thing and you just start drawing these angles that match the thing within the proportions. And then you keep cutting into that block until it starts looking like the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's helping. But I also know it's causing a tremendous amount of frustration because I'm forcing them to ignore that it's a thing, a table, or whatever,
Right.
and just look at it in terms of like rectangles, right?
Yeah.
So I'm forcing them to ignore dimension and specific traits and just look at this thing two-dimensionally.
Yeah. And in the bigger picture, what you're doing is you're trying to get them to get out of, I see a table.
Correct.
With these impressions of how much I like or do dislike the aesthetic of that table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And my hope is that eventually when we have you in class,
Yeah.
we'll be able to do that with the figure, is my hope. Is there anybody?
So this is what I see.
So there should be a...
We're checking my phone because I'm not a techie person.
yeah, sorry guys. If we do it sideways, the chat.
I'm rather a Luddite, actually.
Let's check here. Nope. Sorry, I am not good at this either. Oops, I just screwed it up. I
Oh
closed
no,
the thing.
what happened?
Is there?
Oh, you just minimized it, that's all.
Did I? Okay. Do you mind
How
if
do you,
I-
all I see is like this live chat thing, so I don't know how to.
Yeah, maybe there's no.
Maybe there's nobody talking.
Made it to the live. Hi, my peeps. Okay, yeah, there's nobody talking yet.
Cool.
All right, so we're good. I was worried we were ignoring questions.
Hello, Rick Garcia. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, Rick is awesome. He's from the Philly area. I might have to get a new piece of paper here. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's what you're describing, but that's what I'm shooting for. And these are not things I'm making up. The idea of um, proportions first and blocking and envelope drawing and all this stuff. These are all like old techniques for
Oh yeah.
reproducing stuff you see.
Oh yeah. And I think, and I mean, I remember when I was a student, I was not to brag, but I was just.
You were awesome.
I was
you can
raring
brag.
to go in
Yeah.
freshman year, and I quickly learned that I have to go several steps back with everybody else,
Yes.
which was frustrating. But I understand, like, you're in drawing class and you don't want to draw flapping boxes.
Yes.
In a still life. Like,
Yeah.
we literally had boxes in the still
Well,
life.
and that's what I made them do.
Yeah.
There was like a box, a ball, and a bottle. So
Yeah,
that
right.
was one big shape. And I didn't want to do that either.
No.
But what it allowed me to do was give them really simple forms, and now they have to compare the proportions. So going back to that thing, it was here. I'll try to draw it so that makes sense.
Oh yeah, do that.
So I asked them. So there's 3 items. You do that proportional box around all 3. So height versus width,
Mm-hmm.
or width versus height. And then you do the proportions of the 3 items inside that box, starting from the one closest to you. And then and this is all measured. You measure like what the height versus the width of each item is, right? And then from here you can check angles using like this kind of enveloping method, like that. The other thing I've introduced to them is like the clock method, which is a challenge with a bunch of kids that have never looked at an analog clock.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
That's
So
right.
I actually made because I just assumed they wouldn't know. I made a graphic that I posted on the classroom page with a little clock, so they
Oh.
would know what it looked like, what I'm talking about. And I put it on every corner, right? So you can look at it and go, okay, the angle there is at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
To try to give them a visual of like, an arm turning to check your angles using the clock.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think it's helping. I have no idea for sure. Their drawings are good,
Oh good.
but I don't know that they're soaking it in all the way because
Mm.
I see them being frustrated so much,
Mm.
So, anyway,
That's part of it too. I mean, if anyone's listening who's in this more close to this position in their process, in their training, in their practice as an artist, I would say, just with the whole, I don't want to really do this. I don't want to go through this bullshit. I want to just draw cool looking figures for
yes.
my
Are you posing, by the way?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I didn't know if you were. I
I
didn't want to.
can though. But like, if you're in that position of like, I don't want to do this, I think it's really annoyingly important to just
Yeah, that's exactly right.
just go through the motions and take out from those lessons what you can.
Yeah,
And try
annoyingly important is exactly
Right. And try to maybe switch up your mindset a little bit into like, be a little curious about
Yeah.
the boringness of it all. Like, okay, what could this help what I currently do with my style or with the way I draw?
Yes.
Or what do I currently do in my drawings that this might benefit or
Exactly
switch up a
right.
little bit?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to kind of articulate that mindset to anyone because obviously you're going to think what you're going to think, but just be
Well,
a little more curious about it.
Right. I think with art, it even for kids who are studying it, it feels weird. Like why do I have to draw things that I don't want to draw? Why do I have to get good at drawing things that are unimportant to me? And I get it. I really do.
Yeah.
But any other practice, you wouldn't say that, right? Like no one would say, Christ, if you were just a wood carver, no one would say, hey, start by carving this bust of Abraham Lincoln out of this old tree. Like everybody would know, like, oh, I got to learn about the tools and techniques first.
Yeah.
But
They got to be able to carve a cube and have
Yeah.
it be like symmetrical and make
Correct.
sense. Yeah.
And I think, or if we take it to an even simpler, more common thing, like say cooking,
Yeah.
right? No one just says, hey, go make me some spaghetti and meatballs, without going, well, how do you make a meatball?
Right.
How do you make a sauce?
Yeah.
How do you boil pasta?
Right. How do you know when it's done
Yeah.
properly? No one wants to eat soggy pasta.
Yes. Or undercooked pasta, right? So it's
That's a great analogy. You're hoping to teach them to be able to avoid cooking soggy pasta.
I did not finish that drawing, so you're a headless character here, unfortunately. Yeah, no one wants soggy pasta.
And that's the kind of like, sometimes you gotta just go through the motion of cooking pasta.
Anyway, exactly.
Do you want
wanna
more twos or fives?
I was gonna say, do you want to do it slightly longer because I caught myself.
Okay.
Like, I started with a box like what I've been describing without really planning to do that. So anyway,
All right.
but no one questions that too. I think that's the part that we take for granted. No one goes, well, of course you need to learn how to do the individual things to make the whole. And in art, it doesn't feel that way to people, even if they're, drawing regularly.
Yeah, right. And I mean, in terms of like, okay, if something looks right but it doesn't feel right, I think for me that means, and maybe I'm taking it to like sort of the higher level, but for me that means that maybe you can render something anatomically correctly, but it just, it doesn't breathe.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Doesn't have a life to it, and I'm not expecting artwork to literally jump off the page, but it'd be nice if it imbues something that is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. See, that's why you're the smart one on the team. Because that's kind of the.
Out my mouth.
No. I think that's kind of what I was. I didn't have a good way of saying it, but I think that's it, right? Because I was explaining to some of the students, I'm like, look, those hyper real YouTube videos you see where somebody's drawing something and they're drawing every little pore, and everything looks incredibly like photographic. I could get you an opaque projector and teach you how to do that in an afternoon.
Right.
Right. Those are not actually drawing skills, and I don't mean to knock
that's
photorealistic people or anything like that, but I mean. That says more about their ability to just do the same thing for a really long time.
Yeah.
Versus sort of an old school ability to draw.
Right. I like your point about how those aren't actual drawing skills. I think that's something that's really lost nowadays.
Yeah.
In the art world, particularly with the internet, just teaching people essentially that to like replicate photography. And I mean, we have photography. And it does awesome stuff. And then people make a distinction, right? They go, I don't want a photo of this, I want a painting of this.
Right.
So if they're making that distinction, there's a reason for it.
Correct. And just because it looks, I think to most folks, if it just looks like a drawing, it's good enough, right? And I'm going to use my spaghetti analogy again. Chef Boyardee looks like spaghetti. And you might feed it to your kids because, you don't love them, or no, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. You probably love your kids, but you might feed Chef Boyardee to someone or eat it yourself. But you don't go, yeah, this is just as good as the really fancy Italian place down the street.
Or the home cooking.
Yeah, or the home cooking, right? Exactly. So I guess that's the point. Is like, where do we draw the line between something just looking right versus feeling right, just to get back to the theme here.
Yeah. Well, and we've kind of touched on this with a similar talk about, we've talked about taking more time with work, slowing down, and I think that what we're discussing now seems...
you think it's all related?
It is, in that like you can do something hyper realistic and that has a wow factor.
Right.
But I guess it sounds to me like what we're discussing, like, super academic work versus something that feels right. If it's lacking a feeling, then maybe the wow factor isn't. I could say maybe it isn't sufficient, or I also could say just that's not all that there is. Right.
You need something other than it looking right. You need to be thinking about composition, like all the stuff that's hard to measure, right? Like why does this look and feel good versus just looking right? What are you bringing to the thing with your own unique? I hate the word voice is overused, but the metaphor makes the most sense, right? What is it that you're saying that's different than just a photorealistic version of this? Have you thought through the drawing versus just start at point A, finish at point Z kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I'm hoping that there's a medium. I'm hoping that like I can train these kids to draw what they see without losing the part of themselves that's unique and oh my lord.
Did you break another one?
I just broke another pencil.
Oh.
I'm clearly stressed out about this class because I've gone now. This is 15 shows plus all the little practice ones we did. I've never broke a pencil point. Lord Almighty.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a large task to want to kind of do the technical, but also to try to hint at something a little more behind the curtain of, you know, like the essence of things.
Yeah. It's why is this art versus just an exercise?
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And
So.
that's gonna take. I mean, I feel like a lot of younger art minds, particularly in my experience, are very resistant to that.
That's a great way to put it. Younger art minds, because I catch myself calling them kids and things like that. Younger. I'm gonna write that down. Younger.
I just mean like, you know, a young art student as opposed to someone who's coming to art, but
Yeah.
they're an older, more mature adult. Because, you know, life teaches you as well as art can teach you. And so you can maybe get some things, some finessed or finely
Yeah.
differential things as an adult who's learning art.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm surprised by how rigid some of these kids are. And I'm like, you guys are just starting. Like, why are you so stuck in how you're going to do this stuff?
Yeah, that's.
There's not any
frustrating.
other comments. Is there questions or anything popping up? Sorry, before you get into another pose, I
Ooh, pasta.
figured. Pasta? Is that Dakota?
That's Rick.
Oh, Rick, okay.
And also, teaching kids is stressful. LOL. It really, I, from my experience, yes, and it seems like for you too.
Yeah, and I'm saying kids. I mean, they're like 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
But,
I feel like 20-year-olds are now the new like 10-year-olds. You know.
yeah.
No offense if you're 20.
No, none at all. And I think that's on us. Like,
Just kind of like 30 is the new 20. You know, like it's.
yeah.
We're getting.
Well, we're living,
We're more coddled
yeah, maybe that's it.
for longer. I think.
I know I am, for sure. No, I think about how rough my mom had it compared to me, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah. I'm worrying about, my drawing's good. And my mom was like surviving like, New York in the 70s.
Right.
So, yeah, I know we're all a little coddled. All right, I should draw.
I'm
So-
posing. Yeah. But then how are you thinking of bridging the gap from this is the technical, this is how it looks right,
I'm not
to
sure.
how does it feel?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I was hoping for you to have an answer for me because I think I'm seeing progress with like their ability to measure things and draw them accurately. But there's always this kind of a sense of I don't know that they'll figure out how to use these skills. I don't know if it carries over to their personal work, which is the whole point of this, right? Like we are. It's an art school, but this is an illustration class. All these kids are illustration majors. So I need them to be able to take this to their personal work and have it make sense. And I guess I'm not sure if it's clicking in that sense. They're doing it well in terms of just the exercise. I don't know if any of this will carry over, I guess.
Yeah, but you're just wondering how they're going to extrapolate the exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a much smarter way to put it. So.
Well, I mean, but you're saying they're all illustration students, and for me, in art school, I was really humming and hawing between art, fine art as a major versus illustration as a major.
Right.
And I know that can be a little bit confusing for some young students to kind of pick between the two, and because there's so much crossover, it's a fine line, really, depending on how you apply it.
Yeah, so many of the skills are the same.
Yeah, and but like for me, when I was a younger artist and a student, even as a child, like illustration, wanting to be an illustrator for me was like looking at Kinuko Crafts illustrated storybooks,
Right.
which is so different from what, like a lot of art students I see, they're like, I want to be an illustrator, and they're looking at, I don't know, like the art books for Deadpool or something.
I don't even know if they're doing that.
Or
I
like,
think,
or some kind of anime. I don't know.
or just their favorite illustrator's Instagram page, and they're
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at it for like
Yeah.
10 seconds or whatever the average is, 8 point something seconds, which is a whole different relationship to have with a piece of work than probably
Yes.
you and I had.
Yes. I think
And
so.
I'm not saying one is better than the other. They have more access to stuff.
Really do.
But I worry that the time spent with it is not the same quality, right? Like, 'cause if you found something you liked, like the stuff you're mentioning, you probably held on to it and looked at it over and over and over.
Oh yeah, poring over the books, the work that they did, like just studying it, drawing from it, just just staring at it for years, really.
Right,
You know?
and you absorbed it, you got to know it, and you fell deeply in love with it versus,
Yeah.
you know, staring at this Instagram image, which you can't see. You're seeing this low resolution version of it.
Right.
You can't make out any of the nuance. It just looks flashy and great. And I heard a guy compare looking at internet art to like seeing stuff printed on newsprint. In that it's always
Mm.
lower resolution, and it kind of all the little mistakes are softened, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not getting a good look at it.
Yeah.
It's a little like those old movies where they would haze out the close-ups of somebody's face to make it look dreamy, but also like it softened all the. It's sort of the beauty filters we see on
Yeah.
Instagram and
Oh
stuff
my
now.
gosh, right.
And so I think that's not a great way to absorb that work.
I agree. Yeah.
So we're off sort of on a tangent, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's helpful. Plus, like everything else on Instagram, it just allows for comparison.
Mhm.
And so you're seeing your like high res sketchbook or your tablet or whatever you work on, and comparing it to this low res version on Instagram, and going,
Yeah.
how come my thing doesn't look as good as that?
Yeah.
And to me, it's the equivalent of like looking at your face in the bathroom mirror under fluorescent
Right.
lights versus someone's beautified filter face on Instagram, and it just
Like,
makes you feel
or just
shitty.
like a photo of a celebrity on red carpet. It's like they have
Correct.
the lighting that's right.
Yeah,
They got
yeah.
the professional photographers.
They're
There's
wearing like
all the
what you make
makeup.
in a year on their bodies. Like it's yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely something to not only just seeing work higher res and seeing all the flaws and aspects of it, but also having a tangible product of a work.
Correct,
Like
yeah.
me looking at my favorite illustrator's actual books and like, oh, this is what it would look like if art were in a book.
Yeah.
This is how
Or
it would.
a gallery.
Or a
you know, like,
gallery,
my God.
yeah, right. And then
We-
just seeing something in a little square on a screen is so limiting.
God, we will sometimes take students to a museum.
I feel
'Cause-
like that doesn't happen enough.
It really
You know?
doesn't. It really doesn't. And I think, and I'm not blaming them for this, but they're probably not doing it on their own, right? Like, especially in the illustration department, how often do they have the opportunity to just go? Like, when I was in school, we would try to hit the galleries downtown for First Friday, but even that, like, you're working.
Yeah.
You might, especially
Yeah.
if you work in a restaurant, Fridays you're probably not able to just disappear to a gallery. But these kids got it even worse, I think, where most of them, if they're working during school, they're in the service industry.
Right.
And who has the time, or even the like wherewithal to just go to a gallery and say, I want to look at work, or make it to a museum. It's a tricky thing, so there's not enough of that kind of exposure to the art either.
Right. It's harder in a lot of ways now, I think.
Yeah. I don't remember. I think PCAM may have taken the students to New York last year to visit some like publishers and maybe hit a museum or something. So they do try, but it's tricky because we got to go with a couple hundred students versus I was lucky enough I had a professor that would just take us to a show, like a small group of us, if he had the opportunity to. So like we went to I think there was a Michelangelo sketch show in DC way back when, and this was cool because it's not something you that in that time we take for granted that there's sketches, but there's a reason why you don't see very many from the Renaissance. They would destroy them. They weren't considered art, and so he just took us to go see these sketchbooks of Michelangelo's, and I remember just being struck in that like. They just look like mine. Not that I'm as good as Michelangelo, but I was like, these are just shitty sketches, like my shitty sketches.
Yeah, I totally get that. Like I was looking at the Demuth Museum, not the Demuth Museum, the Brandywine Museum show of N.C. Wyeth's and Andrew Wyeth's work a while ago. And yeah, they just had like sketches out, drawings out of Andrew's, and I, as an artist who's been practicing, who's literally been drawing since I was 3 years old. Like I'm looking at his stuff and I'm like, I get it. I see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do the same thing.
Perfectly makes sense. Yeah. He's not so godlike after all.
No.
You know, like
that's the beauty in seeing stuff physically.
I agree.
But maybe also to get back to our discussion of feels right versus looks right, you know, that also is a way for art students to, if they do that more, they can start to have conversations or at least sensations around like, this feels right, why does it feel right?
Yeah, that's actually a great point,
you know?
Because going back to Wyeth, like there's a lot of stuff in there that when you see the drawings, you see some of the paintings up close, you see how the entire family stylized their work, even the most realistic of them.
Yeah.
And so you see it for what it is, and as an artist you cut yourself some slack maybe because you go, yes, this person's a genius, but I can see the path from here now.
Right.
Versus what I've been looking at online.
Right. And hopefully, you know, you can then see, looking at Giant's work, you can see the value of, okay, they did all this training.
Yes.
And then they made it their own.
That's, you know what? Thank you for that. You're right, because those guys were all classically trained. And then did really dramatic illustration-like work with the tools they learned. So see, okay, that works.
I mean, look at NCY's illustrated books, like Robin Hood and stuff.
Yes.
He's great with color blocking and light, you know, but he has a very distinctive stylization of figure.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, in the way that he even kind of stylizes the shapes of shadows and creates almost a whole new figure out of just the shape of the shadow.
Right.
You know, and that is illustrative.
That's exact. See, I feel better now. Because, no, you're right. Because I'm thinking of even his environments. Because this class is not a figure drawing class. It's just observational drawing, so we're drawing everything.
Oh, great.
And it's hard. One of the things I'm going to cover is perspective, so we're going to have to draw a space. And I'm thinking, how do I carry this over to them? You know, because one of them already asked about drawing a grid. And like, yes, normally I'd have you guys drawing grids, but this class is on observation. I want to teach you how to draw something in perspective without the grid. Just by looking at the angles and assessing things and comparing them to other things. How long have we been at it, by the way?
It is 11:53, almost an hour.
Yikes! We should probably call it.
Thanks, Rick Garcia says that's a good point about art versus illustration.
Yeah, and there's not enough. And when I was in art history, there wasn't enough shown of like these classical paintings that were essentially illustrations. Right, and I wish more of that was covered so we could make those comparisons. But we'll wrap it up there. It's a good show. Thank you. This actually was helpful.
I hope so. I feel like we didn't really get into that all the stuff about how it feels, but we can do that more.
Well, we'll cover it in the next show. Which,
perfect. There you go. Tune in next time, everybody.
Yeah. Episode 16 coming soon. We'll sort of carry over this conversation. But thank you to everybody that is out there watching this live. It sounds like it's Rick for the most part. Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, that's my. I need to plan these a little better so people know to like expect them or maybe not do them during the workday. So. But Mairin-Taj, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Good. Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, and thanks to you folks who are patrons who are getting this a week early and get to ask questions every fifth episode. Thank you to the folks at Curio who have hosted us here in this beautiful space, and Blackwing. Look in the descriptions. I'll get you guys links to everybody. I'll try to also refer to the painting I mentioned earlier, who's the artist name escapes me. Mairin-Taj, they can find you on Instagram and all that stuff at.
Instagram at what is it? Studio_Mayor, MAIR.
And I will put the link to her Patreon. You can also check her stuff out. You do tons of instructional art. You offer some model reference for artists. It's kind of a one-stop shop. I'm a member, so I can't endorse it enough. I love it. So that's it. I'll see you guys next week or next month. Oh
Next
my God.
month.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
How was the warm-ups? Looks like you